Welcome to this quick guide to amazing memory techniques. Now, many people think they have a really poor memory because of the numerous times they've forgotten things. Well, it's true we do forget things sometimes, but often the problem isn't to do with our memory. It is usually to do with concentration. Take making new friends and meeting new people, for example. If you've ever been unable to remember the name of someone you've only just met, chances are you never really heard their name properly in the first place. You are likely to have been too busy saying your own name and putting yourself under a degree of stress because of the pressures of the social environment that their name went in one ear and out the other almost immediately. Of course, the logical thing to do is to blame your memory, when really it was just a matter of not paying attention. The really cool thing is that by applying some very easy memory techniques, you can remember the names of all the people you ever meet for as long as you want. In fact, you can learn to remember just about anything you want to with the right technique. Before we dive into these techniques, let's look at how your memory works. Broadly speaking, you can divide your memory into three time-based areas. The shortest memory you have is your sensory memory. This typically lasts for less than half a second and acts as a buffer for the information you receive from your five senses. When you look at something briefly and can remember what it looks like, that's your sensory memory. Next, we have your short-term memory, also known as your working memory, which typically lasts for less than a minute. It allows you to both remember and process information at the same time. For example, when you read the start of a sentence, that is held in your short-term memory whilst the rest of the sentence is read so you can understand it. This part of your memory has been called the brain's post-it note and holds a very small amount of information, typically around 7 items. And then we have your long-term memory, which is obviously for storage of information over a long period of time, from a few hours to the rest of your life. There are different types of long-term memory. For example, the ability to recall facts and knowledge is referred to as semantic memory, whilst remembering things related to people, places or events is known as episodic memory. Now, these come under a broad heading known as declarative memories, memories we can consciously recall and declare. Another type of memory is for those things we repeatedly do, things like tying your shoelace, playing a musical instrument or riding a bike. These are known as procedural memories and are generally subconscious. The important question then is, how do we take something from our short-term memory and put it into our longer-term memory by choice? Well, the brain organises new information by associating with things you already know in order to make sense of them. By using memory techniques, you can artificially supercharge this process at will. So let's have a look at the secret to using memory techniques. Well, it doesn't matter what technique you use because they all follow this secret recipe. First of all, you use your imagination to make something outstanding in your mind. You then associate it to something you already know, and finally you strengthen it into your long-term recall by practicing the recall. You will discover how to condition it into your long-term memory so you can always remember it in the next video, so let's just focus on how we get there in the first place. First of all, let's look at how we use our imagination to make something outstanding. Now, to do this, we need to use some important memory principles to supercharge our imagination to help make things more memorable. These are principles that help us to visualize more effectively and so create images that are far easier to remember. The first of these principles is to exaggerate everything, make things that are usually very small very large, and shrink things usually very large down to a very small size. The more colourful something is, the better, and if you can also make it really absurd and unusual, then that's even better. Images that are funny and perhaps even rude are also more memorable than boring and polite. And of course, something that is still and static is nowhere near as memorable as something that has lots of movement. Just using one of these principles will help you make things more memorable, but if you can use them all, then your chances of remembering what you are learning increases tenfold. So let's have a look at the three memory techniques you're going to discover in the rest of this video. They are the story technique, the journey technique, and the letters equals numbers technique. First of all, let's start with the story technique and let me tell you about the major planets in our solar system that orbit the sun. So, starting off in the left-hand side here, we have the sun. So you see a large orange ball. Feel the flames, feel the heat, feel the crackling of the flames. Now, next to that sun is a thermometer. This thermometer is full of mercury. Now the mercury gets hotter and hotter and hotter, expands and expands and expands, and shoots out in a silver arc and lands all over a beautiful woman wearing a deep V-cut dress with lots of V's on it called Venus. Venus, the goddess of love. Now Venus, to run away from the Mercury, starts digging a hole in the Earth. Now as the hole gets deeper and deeper and deeper, the Earth piles higher and higher and higher, and at the bottom of the hole she finds a small red-faced man eating a Mars bar. The man eating the Mars bar takes the Mars bar, throws it away, it comes whistling through the air, hits a huge giant fellow with a J kiss curl. This is Jupiter, king of the gods. Now on his t-shirt you notice the letters S-U-N, that stands for Saturn, Uranus and Neptune. So there are the 8 planets that are close to our sun. Now let's see what you can remember. So we had a large orange ball. What was next to the orange ball? A small thermometer. What was in the thermometer? Yes, Mercury. Now the Mercury came out in a big silver arc and landed all over who? A beautiful woman, lots of V's on her dress, called Venus, the goddess of love. She started doing what? Yes, digging a hole in the Earth. And she dug a hole, and what did she find in the bottom of the hole? A small red-faced man eating a Mars bar, yes, for the planet Mars. He takes his Mars bar, he throws it away, comes whistling through the air, hits a very giant, big, because it's a very big planet, Jupiter. This is Jupiter, king of the gods. The Mars bar hits him on his forehead, he starts to fall over. What are the letters you notice on his t-shirt? Yes, S-U-N, which stand for Saturn, Uranus and Neptune. So let's have a look at what we've just done there. Well, first of all, let's have a look at the items we want to remember. Here are the first 4 items in the sequence: the Sun, Mercury, Venus and Earth. Now to represent each of those we have to find an image that symbolises them. So for the Sun we have a large orange ball. For Mercury we use a thermometer. The planet Venus is represented by the goddess Venus, and we use a pile of Earth for, you've guessed it, Earth. But as this is a story, we now need to create strong links using our memory principle so we can link each item we want to remember. So in the story, the Sun heats up Mercury. The hot Mercury expands and shoots all over Venus. To escape the Mercury, Venus digs a hole in the Earth. In the hole she finds a small red-faced man, and so on. So creating a story to link ideas and concepts in this way is very powerful. It's a very powerful method to put information into your longer-term memory. So in summary, here's how you create your stories. The first step is to identify the ideas you're looking to memorize. This might be a list of keywords, it might be a sequence of activities, or it might be the main points from a topic you're studying. The second step is then to identify what objects you're going to represent those ideas in your story with. And then once you have those, link each to the next using some form of action and repeat until you have linked together all the objects in a unique story, remembering to use the principles of exaggeration, being funny and movement. So that's the story technique. Now let's have a look at the journey technique. Now this is another powerful memory technique. If ever you see someone on TV doing amazing feats of memory, it's highly likely they're using this system. It's one of the oldest memory systems used both by the Greeks and the Romans, 2 civilizations that highly valued having a good memory. It's called the journey technique because we take somewhere we know really well, like our home, and we use locations on a journey around that place to create a mental filing system. So for example, if this was your home, you might use the door, the window, the dark brown sofa, the small table, the fireplace, and perhaps the mirror. As you can see, the sequence of locations follows a logical journey around the room. Now we have our locations, the next thing we need to do is use them to remember what it is we want to learn. As an example, let's use a shopping list. What we are going to do is link an unusual, absurd, colourful and exaggerated image of each item on the shopping list to each of the locations on our journey. Now the first item on our list is some blueberries. So I want you to imagine stuffing handfuls of blueberries through the letterbox of the door and seeing the blue juice run down the inside of the door together with the sticky mess of the crushed fruit as it piles up on the doormat inside the door. The next item is sunflower seeds. So imagine 2 big sunflowers bursting through the window. Remember 2 is our second location. And then spinning very quickly, depositing sunflower seeds all over the room as they spray off in all directions because the flowers are rotating so quickly. Next we have some peanut butter, which we're going to place on the sofa under the window. Imagine opening a jar of peanut butter. It's a big jar, sticking your hand inside, scooping out a huge dollop, then wiping it all over the sofa, making sure you cover every inch of the seat, as well as covering the cushions as well. Now the fourth item on our list is spinach. Imagine opening the big bag of spinach leaves and emptying it all over the table, watching the leaves fall onto the table, just like they do in the autumn, gradually covering the table until you can no longer see it under the pile of green spinach. Now the next item on our list is dark chocolate. Perhaps putting it in the fireplace is not so good an idea because it will melt. So see a big pile of chocolate melting in the fireplace, slowly disintegrating as it goes from a solid to a liquid, turning into a river of dark chocolate whose source is in the fireplace, but then flows out to the rest of the room. And finally, the last item on the list is oily fish. Imagine 4 oily fish dancing on the shelf in front of the mirror in unison, as though they were in a fishy ballet class. Now, that was bizarre, wasn't it? Well, let's see if it worked. What image did you see on the front door? What about on the window? What did you wipe all over the sofa? How about the table? What did we put there? Now, we placed something in the fireplace. What was it? And finally, there was something on the shelf by the mirror. Can you remember what it was? Now, if you've made those images, you will easily recall all those items on the list. And that's how the technique works. By the way, you've just memorized the 6 foods that are great, or 6 foods that are great for the brain and your memory. So what do you need to do to use this technique? Well, step 1 is identify locations on a journey you know well. Step 2 is review the journey forwards and backwards till you know it well. Step 3, create memorable images from the sequence you want to remember. Step 4, link those images on the locations using the memory principles. Step 5, mentally walk through the journey seeing each image. Step 6, to recall the sequence, simply revisit the journey in your imagination. Like the story technique, this can be used for lists, sequences, key points or processes, and is another powerful addition to your memory technique toolbox. And so on to our final technique, which is called the numbers equals letters technique. This is a very simple way to remember numbers, especially important dates. So how could you remember that the Wall Street crash happened in 1929, or that the Great Fire of London took place in 1666, or the Battle of Hastings, where King Harold was killed by an arrow in his eye, took place in 1066? Well, it's quite simple. We use a technique where we use a meaningful and related sentence using words where the number of letters in a word equals the number we're trying to remember. For example, for the Wall Street crash, using the numbers 1929, we could use the sentence, a breakdown of economics. The Great Fire of London could be remembered with the sentence, a London bakery burned. And the Battle of Hastings with a more creative, 10 Eiffel arrows. In each case, the sentence is related to the actual event and so is far easier to remember than the number itself. To recall the date, all we have to do is recall the sentence, count the letters in each word, and that will give us the number we are looking for. So as you can see, these memory techniques are very powerful and very easy to use. They do require a little bit of effort, but it will give you a great mental workout. And when you start using them, you'll be amazed at just how much and how quickly you can learn.